Loneliness has been declared an epidemic in today's world. But has it always been this way? Surely, there has to be a reason why psychologists take this stance. And that got me thinking, how has friendship and loneliness changed since the last 50 years? Well, to find out, we're gonna have to travel back in time and start from the very beginning. The year is 1974. Jackson 5 just dropped their 9th studio album. The first video game console in history just dropped 2 years ago, and houses didn't require blood sacrifice in order to afford. The day for this average teenager in the 70s began just the same as any other. He woke up, prepared for school, then after schooling was complete, the teenager traveled to the local park to meet up with a friend. And after the two teenagers met, they did the one thing two able-bodied men of their age did during that time. Wait, hold up. Ah yes, they got groovy that night. Groovy. You see, for the average friendship and relationship to be created in the 70s, you actually had to meet people in person. Your closest friends probably consisted of your schoolmates, your neighbors, or other kids you met in the neighborhood. As a matter of fact, as a kid, all you really needed to do was pick one of the dozens of kids that would play sports in the street, start playing with them, and boom, best friends for life. And that's not all. Once you had friends, virtually everything you guys did was in person, which made bonds that much stronger. Texting? What's that? If you wanted to talk to someone, you had to pick up the phone, player. There ain't no hiding behind a phone screen in this time period. TV? Yeah, we had that. 96% of us did, in fact. But usually, if we wanted to hang out, we would just bike over to our friend's house to watch our favorite episode of Gunsmoke. The two teenagers needed to decide how far out their night will be. And don't you worry, there was a plethora of things a group of teenage friends could do at the time. Roller disco, a staple of the times. Boogie, the local arcade, always a great choice. Off the hook. Or if you prefer to stay inside, grab a friend and play board games all through the night. Radical. Drive-in movie theater. If you wanted to impress a foxy mama, this is what you do. Funky. Rock concerts, skateboarding, amusement parks, sneaking out to the local forest to drink beer and do drugs. Wait, what? What are you guys doing? You guys aren't of age. Anyways, back in the 70s, friendships were the staple of how people spent majority of their free time. In a world where a relationship could only be created by getting out of your comfort zone and approaching someone, who you spent your time with dictated your life. And between all the activities we had available and how much easier it was for us to build a strong bond with someone over time, it was impossible for someone in the 1970s to feel lonely. At least, that's what this teenager wished were the case. It was completely bizarre. Despite living in a time period with an abundance of opportunity to be around people, the teenager considered himself to be one of the 11% of people at the time who felt lonely or removed from society. Now look at him. Alone, sad, pathetic, weak. Women probably haven't looked his way in years. His afro looks freaking messy. Ugh. And by the smell of things, he hasn't showered in weeks. But hey look, he got a brand new washing machine, which means he no longer needs to leave the comfort of his own home in order to do the laundry. Oh, and a TV finally got color. Almost every home has a color TV now, in fact, making the television programs more attractive and life at home way more comfortable. As a matter of fact, thanks to this increase in home luxuries, the teenager found himself leaving home less and less often. And he hasn't met anyone new in a very long time. Wait, is there a correlation between life becoming more convenient, luxuries getting more accessible, which in turn robs us of opportunities to meet new people in person, and our feelings of being lonely? Nah, no way. I'm sure it's just a coincidence. This stuff's only meant to make our lives easier. There's nothing wrong with that. So what that he's slightly less incentivized to leave his home and meet people? It's not that big a deal. And even if it was, surely this will not turn out to be a trend that gets worse in the future as the years go by, right? Right? The year is 1984. Michael Jackson just announced his solo career. Nintendo just revealed the NES. And houses, you know, they're getting up there in price, but at least I don't have to decide between keeping my kidneys or paying my mortgage. Now that we've explored the 70s, let's see what the 1980s is all about and how friendships have evolved these last 10 years. Remember disco parties from the 70s? That was so last decade. Almost nobody does that anymore. But that's alright. For this average teenager in the 1980s, there were many other opportunities to make new friends. Music, dance, and entertainment were a staple of how cliques were made and how friendships started. This was still largely a world where almost everything you did involved meeting someone face to face. But now, there were way more popular interests and trends growing that many people could connect and build a friendship over. Yo, y'all remember MTV?
I want my MTV.
I want my MTV.
Imagine millions of households sat in front of their television screen watching the same music videos from their favorite bands and artists at the exact same time. And guess what you guys did the following day when you met someone new? That's all y'all talked about. Boom! Easy friendship. The teenager knew that he needed to make new friends. But times have changed since the last 10 years. Back in the 70s, a lot of your friendships were formed because of proximity and convenience, aka the guy you sat next to in class, or that one weird kid from down the block. Although that's still here to some extent. Thanks to the change in the political climate, society has gotten more individualistic in their thinking. Why, you may ask? Well, let me put y'all on game. Ronald Reagan, remember this guy? And Margaret Thatcher for the UK homies. Well, he was president at the time, and among other things, he was known for his anti-government rhetoric, advocating for limited government intervention in Americans' lives, promoting individual freedom. Oh, and Thatcher believed the same thing. As well as society's championship of entrepreneurship, the rise of conservatism, and the rejection of the idea of thinking as a collective group. People of this time period cared more about their own personal interests and personal success than any point in the last couple decades. So the teenager instinctively knew that he only wanted to make friends with people who had similar interests as him, thus making his friend circle smaller than the average friend group over 10 years ago. And you're probably thinking, but wait, wouldn't this sudden surge of self-focus and rejection of the group in and of itself cause the people to engage in less friendships, thus initiating a downward spiral that will lead more people to loneliness? Let's not worry about that right now, guys. We still got 3 more decades to explore. As the teenager was walking, he came across someone else who appeared to be of similar age to him. Upon first glance, he noticed how bodacious his threads were, and as they began talking, the teenagers noticed they shared the same fashion sense and have a lot in common with each other, such as music. Music had a huge influence in how people connected as friends, and tons of people shared similar interests. Video games, spending hours a day at home with your friends playing the games you guys all liked. Movies! As media became more popular, connecting over your favorite movies became an easy way for friends to connect, especially if you were part of the same fandom. The two teenagers developed a friendship over the next couple months, enjoying their youth and bonding over their shared commonalities and interests. That was until one day, the teenager's new friend dropped some heartbreaking news. The new friend told the teenager that his parents accepted a new career opportunity in an up-and-coming urban city and he would be moving away. He goes on to explain that people moving further away to big cities are common now, and this will be a great chance to find new jobs as he gets older. And that although it's great for his family's future, it means they won't be able to physically interact with each other anymore for a long time, if at all. The teenager was sad at the news, but it's not as if he didn't see this coming. You see, urbanization, or a population shift from rural areas to bigger cities, were very common in the 1980s. This meant that people were traveling greater distances apart from each other, and their original friendship networks were separating. Since this caused less face-to-face interactions between friends compared to decades prior, this would often leave people feeling a sense of loneliness. But not all hope is lost, however. Society just came out with this brand new technology called email. It hasn't been made available to everyone yet, but apparently when it does, we'd be able to talk to people at a long distance without even having to pick up a telephone, almost as if the distance doesn't matter. Wow, this technology thing is great! Hopefully, it only stays as an additional means of communication and not as a substitute for true human connection, cause, you know, that'll suck. The year is 1994. Michael Jackson was just accused of his wait. He did what? Sony just dropped the first PlayStation, and whew, house prices are going up. Hey, it's still not terrible. All I gotta say is, those black market organ donor websites are looking real enticing right now. You know, a good chunk of my audience is old enough to have experienced the 90s, so I'm sure this is gonna jog some memories. But real quick, I got a question for you guys. So I was born in 1999. In December. So technically, I, as a human being, existed in the 90s. So my question to you is, would someone who's only been alive in the 1990s, you know, for about a month, be considered a 90s kid? Let me know. The 90s were an interesting decade, as this was the first decade where the internet became popular and widely available. That being said, let's see what the average day for a teenager looks like and how friendship has changed from the last decade to now. The 90s were like the Twilight Zone. We had computers, instant messaging, mobile phones, but even with this, a lot of the relationships still had to be created and cultivated face to face. The teenager began and continued his day as usual. So far in his life, most of his friends came from school, classmates, neighbors. Oh, and this is a good time for me to bring up that physical stores like Blockbuster were still around. And you're probably thinking, Tyreek, why the heck is that relevant? Because it goes to show the opportunities people still had to feel human connection at the time. Even if it was just a really small thing that didn't seem like a big deal. Sure, you could still go to the movie theater like normal, or you can make a quick trip to your local Blockbuster, physically go to the store and rent one. A lot of the times, it wasn't even about the movie you rented, it was the experience of walking outside your house, going to the store and seeing other people. Oh, and restaurants too. If we wanted to eat outside food, we went outside to get it. Well, I mean, at least for now. Pizza Hut just launched its website called PizzaNet, where I can go online, order a pizza on the internet, and have it be brought to my door without having to leave my home or talking to anyone for that matter. Wow. Imagine a world where you could order all your food and necessities without ever leaving your home or seeing another human being. That'll never happen. After he finished school, the teenager went straight home to relax. But not before reading the most recent letter he received from his school pen pal. Apparently pen pals were this thing where you physically wrote letters to a random person at a different school. I guess it was just another cool way to meet new people. Afterwards, the teenager was getting kind of bored and felt the need to hang out with his friends. He could have called a friend on the phone or even invited a friend over to hang out at his house. But since it was more of a spur of the moment feeling and a lot of his closest friends lived further away, the teenager decided to hop on AOL Messenger to say what's up to the homies. They chatted away for hours on end that night, something that wasn't possible just 10 years ago. The beauty of technology during this time period is that it's the first decade where distance between friends didn't matter as much as it did before, where any semblance of loneliness was aided with chat rooms. Of course, the teenager knew this wouldn't replace the hanging out late nights, the going to the malls, or even just chatting on the phone for hours that friends did frequently at the time. But hey, it's nice to not have to leave your house for everything, especially now that we got this. Game Boy. Damn, this is kind of addicting, I'm not gonna lie. It's cool now that these game consoles are portable now. You can play them inside, outside with friends. But man, these new gadgets make it really easy to enjoy time on your own though. I wonder if we ever even need to see another friend in person anymore to feel connected. The year is 2004. Michael Jackson just narrowly survived a death scare, and thank God he made it. Could you imagine a world without MJ? Nintendo just dropped the GameCube 3 years ago, and I don't even want to look at the house prices. Damn, we're in a brand new millennium, meaning new trends, new technology, and brand new ways people could connect with each other and make friends. And it just so happens, as a Gen Z, I have first-hand experience on what a childhood and making friends was like back in the 2000s. Research? We don't need that no more. From this point forward, I'm pulling this info straight from memory. Don't worry guys, I got this. Now let's see how the average kid/teenager made and maintained friendships during this time. The 2000s probably saw the biggest explosion of technology compared to any decade prior. The internet actually doesn't suck anymore, and Blackberries made it so that we don't have to wait 20 years to send a single text message. But my brother, if you were a kid or teenager in the mid to late 2000s, you knew exactly what we did with our friends to build a friendship. You have no idea how many fond memories we have of just inviting our friends over to our house to play GameCube. Even if it was just single player, we'd take turns passing the controller around. But bro, I know this is a video about friendships, but best believe every idea of friendship was thrown out the window when that split screen came on. Literally hours of straight trash talk when that Budokai Tenkaichi 3 came on screen, or Wii Sports, or Halo, or pretty much any game we played at the time. Point is, even at this stage of technology, going over to our friends' houses to hang out was still going pretty strong, even 30 years later. Even if video games weren't really your thing growing up, we still have fond memories making new friends, from playing in the park after school, going to the library, going to block parties, or even literally going to a friend's house to play Nerf battles. In terms of friendships, in the early to mid 2000s, everything was perfect. Until something changed. The economy. So, you know, a little something happened in 2008. Yeah, nothing too major, you know, just a literal worst economic downturn in the US since the Great Depression. And because of that fact, obviously everyone was impacted financially, forcing many people to make tough decisions to stay afloat. Remember urbanization from the 80s and how people moving away affected friendships? Well, because of the '08 recession, lots of people were incentivized to move further away to brand new locations in search of job opportunities. And naturally, this need for financial security caused people to put in a lot more hours in their jobs and a heck of a lot more time working. Life in this decade overall became more busy for everyone, and you know what happens when more people move further away and become too busy to maintain their friendships? It leaves room for loneliness. The teenager was initially upset at how fast life was changing, because now in the late 2000s, he didn't see his friends as much as he did earlier in the decade. But then something really funny happened. Gaming consoles started really pushing this thing called online play, meaning now we have the option to play with each other using the power of the internet. This solves two problems. Now, not only are we able to play with each other anytime we want, regardless of how far we live apart, but now we can make completely brand new friends from people we meet playing these online games. And the best part is, you could literally go your entire life talking to these guys in the party chat without ever having to see each other in person. The teenager was excited about this and made it a habit every night to hop on Xbox Live to play and chat with his friends, who not only live further away, but live busier lives. So anytime they could find together was precious. But even with this, he can't seem to shake off the feeling of emptiness and feeling he would prefer if everyone was just physically together again. It seems like now, with this new technology designed to not make us feel too far apart, it's almost as if it also incentivizes us to not come together as much either. I wonder if there'll be any other technology in the future that'll incentivize us to not see each other at all. The year is 2014. Guys, this is the first decade where Michael Jackson is no longer with us. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that say. Sony just dropped the greatest console of the decade last year, and at this point, Who even needs houses anymore? Go to your Dick's Sporting Goods, pick up a sleeping bag, and call it a day. The 2010s was the decade where everything changed, and long-distance communication between people hasn't been the same since. Just for reference, Steve Jobs revealed the first iPhone in 2007, and for the longest time, phones looked like this. So imagine having a phone that was more attractive, more entertaining, with easier access to apps and the internet, and a screen that was way more user-friendly and conducive to texting. The internet got a heck of a lot better, and thus rose the popularity of social media. Social media was around in the 2000s, but was still in its infancy, and nowhere near as widely used as it was in the 2010s. Now, I could go down the rabbit hole and explain how social media plays a part in limiting human interaction, and how relying on it as a main source of connection fosters soulless and superficial relationships. So I will. Now, let's take a look at how the average teenager in the 2010s built and maintained friendships during this time. He woke up, prepared for school. What are you doing? Don't you have somewhere to be? Don't you wanna, I don't know, leave your home, maybe hang out with some people? What the heck are you even looking at that's so important? Oh, you're on Instagram. Okay, well, the teenager wakes up and decides to scroll on Instagram for a few minutes. It may not look like it, but the teenager does have lots of friends. And according to this, over 900 friends apparently. And thanks to the beauty of technology during this decade, communication between friends has never been more seamless. Dial-up internet that takes hours to get started? How about a text message that takes seconds? With this knowledge in mind, the teenager has built a habit of texting his friends frequently. The teenager loved this level of convenience. What a blessing it is to be literally an arm's length away from human connection at all times. Wow, he thought to himself. We've never been more connected as human beings before. Well, granted, he hasn't seen his friends face to face in weeks, but hey, people are busy. And besides, he texts his friends almost every day, so it definitely doesn't feel like they haven't seen each other. Oh, would you look at that? His stomach is growling. Looks like the teenager is hungry. And with no food in the house, he'd have to order out. That being said, now, the teenager has two options. Option A, he can order via a food delivery app, have it delivered to his home without ever leaving his front door, continuing his habit of limiting face-to-face interaction. Or option B, and you know what? Hear me out on this one. Let's say we do leave our house for once. I know, it's less convenient than ordering Uber Eats and having it delivered, but think about it. Your entire life recently has been going to work, going to school, then coming straight home. You barely give yourself any opportunities to interact with another person, let alone meet someone new. You're thinking that texting the friends you haven't seen in weeks is a good substitute for real physical connection. False. Tell you what, why don't you put your shoes on, walk the 10 minutes to the store, and, God forbid, actually interact with someone. Heck, even if it's just a quick chat with the cashier for a few seconds. I know it's not much, but at least it's a step in the right direction. Are you happy with yourself? After lunch is complete, the teenager was feeling a bit bored, so he instinctively went to pick up his phone to scroll on social media a bit more. In terms of creating friendships, the same principles could still be applied today as it was 50 years ago. The teenager's friends mainly came from school, work, childhood friends from the neighborhood, and a few people he met from parties and other events he's been to in his life. But thanks to the internet, friends can be made just as easily online as they can in person. Online gaming, sliding into someone's DMs on Facebook or Instagram, Reddit. And you know what? The best part about social media is that even if you're not that close with the people you met in your life anymore, you could still know exactly what's going on in everyone else's lives, even if you don't really care. Oh wow, look at that. My old childhood friend I haven't seen or spoken to in years just posted a photo. Look at how much fun he's having on his trip with his friends. Aw, his life seems to be going pretty well, and here I am, all alone. What? That's it. That's enough. I'm gonna go into my friend's group chat and schedule a time for us to all hang out with each other. I don't care how busy life gets or how much easier it is just to text someone. Spending time face to face with each other is important, and we have to take advantage of the time we still have to do that. Because for all we know, in a couple years' time, there may be a global event one day that stops all human interaction. Sorry, I didn't have a cameraman for that one. The year is 2024. What the heck is this? I mean, the decade just started, so I doubt there's really much to talk about. I mean, the pandemic, that sucked, right? No face-to-face contact with other people for a year and a half definitely made loneliness worse. Some people even lost contact with close friends, and that's pretty terrible. VR chat. Metaverse, am I right? Apparently put on these goggles to go to a virtual world and talk to real people. But in reality, you're just standing in your room by yourself, not talking to anyone. I'm sure that can't be good for human connection long term. I mean, that's pretty much it. I don't really foresee anything else happening this decade.
Hey, Tyreek.
Oh, hey. Oh, sorry guys. It's just this new app I downloaded.
What are you up to?
Oh, I'm just finishing up a YouTube video. Do you see the camera?
Yeah, I see it. Okay, my little YouTuber. What do you have going on afterwards?
Wait, what do you mean? We have our date tonight, don't you remember?
Haha, I know. I was just testing to see if you remember.
Oh wait, let me show you what I'm wearing tonight.
Babe, I know you're going to look good in anything.
Thanks, babe.